Hey everyone, how we doing today? This is James Sweeney, aka SplitSuit, and welcome back to another video. And as part of the Ask SplitSuit a Question series, a bunch of people did ask hand history questions, and this one actually came from Dean. And Dean just wants me to review an interesting tournament spot with pocket sevens. So let's check out the hand. Okay, so at this stage in the tournament, the blinds are 100, 200. It folds around to the small blind who completes, and Dean says this immediately raises an eyebrow because I hadn't looked at my hand yet and completely expected villain to steal. He's a laggish player and furthermore undoubtedly perceives me to be a tag. I'm certain he would steal with all ace-x, all medium pairs, and any double broadways, so I immediately remove those from his range. So I too am a little surprised whenever I see a lag complete from the small blind. I just automatically assume they're going to steal just like you did, and I think your steal range idea is definitely correct as far as eliminating some of those hands from his completion range. So in a situation like this, I just kind of ask myself, are there any dynamics that would lead him to complete here? Like, does he think that I'm automatically going to raise this to something like 800 to 1,000 and he's just going to limp re-raise me or limp call me every single time with maybe one of those trickier hands like a king 9 or a queen jack suited or one of those kind of things? Or does he fear that I'm going to 3-bet him a large chunk of the time, so maybe he decides to limp call instead of go for a raise face the 3-bet? So I just ask myself if there's any of those kind of dynamics that have been present throughout the match, but ultimately, in general, I'm going to be raising this and attacking it. I'm cool if he folds, cool if he calls, and if he decides to limp re-raise the way he did, then we'll just make some math decisions from here. So at this point, Dean says, I feel his range is fairly polarized. I believe he would flat with his higher equity hands like 9-8 suited or 10-9 suited, even offsuit variants of these same connectors. So I'm thinking low connected cards, some King X or maybe Queen X, as well as the more nutted parts of his range like Queens Plus that he decided to get tricky with. The key assumption that I make in this hand is that villain will continue with his bluffs, because I have observed that he does not like to give up in 3-bet pots. Naturally, this gives me implied odds against the junk part of his range. This idea, along with stack sizes and that I have position, make me think that a set mine isn't a terrible play. Furthermore, I'm not uncomfortable with the idea of floating certain textures with a bluff catch and reassess mindset. Given this, what are your thoughts when I make the call? Okay, so I have a couple quick thoughts when you do decide to call in this situation. First and foremost, by calling, you're putting yourself in a situation that's under 4 SPR. Yes, I like the fact that we have position. Yes, I like the fact that we're closing action. Yes, I like the fact that we have an okay pair in our hand. However, my main issue is this. One, it's under 4 SPR, which is a major problem in the sense that we're getting very, very close to committed very, very quickly. Two is that you mentioned set mining. Yes, it's cool when we catch our set, but we can't really call in a situation like this solely looking to set mine. It's just not going to be great. We're not getting a good enough return on investment because even the times that he is bluffing, are we really going to make more than just a single continuation bet? And he just doesn't have enough nutted stuff in his range, in my opinion. Yes, it's cool when he does have Queens Plus, but if we look at that from a combo scale, we're talking about, 18 combos, 6 apiece, and that's just not a ton if you look at the entire density of his range, in my opinion. So because of that, I think that calling here to set miner with a major set mine mentality is not going to be the best idea. So really it needs to be one where you have a pretty definitive plan. And if we look at a hand like pocket sevens and Flopzilla, we notice that yes, it catches really strong, that 11-ish% of the time, but the overpairs we're going to be catching a little bit, but large majority of the time we're catching second or third pair type hands. And that's obviously going to be very, very awkward and uncomfortable and something that we need to be massively prepared for. And understanding that when we are catching these kind of situations, 51% of the time where we're catching third or fourth pair, that's a time when one, small blind could have improved and now has the best hand, or two, has decent equity against us because he has 1 or 2 overcards or maybe some sort of gut shot attached to it, and we're trying to play this like bluff catch mindset, which is going to be really, really tricky considering that obviously turn and river cards can be uncomfortable. Are we really inducing enough turn and river bluffs, or are we just inducing that single c-bet? And that's a major, major part of the puzzle in my opinion. Now, you made one very, very important comment that I want to touch on real quick before you decide to call. So you said that he doesn't like to give up on 3-bet pots. Now, that actually makes me want to 4-bet here, and I'd 4-bet to probably like 4.5 or 4.7 and simply go from there, and obviously if he jams, I'm calling it. Yes, he could have some nutted combos, but I'm assuming overall I'm going to have a huge equity edge. And because you think he's not going to give up in 3-bet pots, that makes me think that when he's doing this with air, there's going to be some of those hands that he feels he just has to ship with. And when you go to something like 4.5 or 4.7, you're not saying that you're automatically committed to call, which is great. You don't want to go to like, I don't know, 7 or 8,000, where obviously he knows there's no fold equity. Whereas if you go to somewhere between, again, mid fours, there is certainly some fold equity there because you're putting in less than a third of the effective stack. So that's really, really important to consider here. And because of that, I'd much rather do that. One, it allows me to rep a bluff pretty nicely, and I'm totally cool with that. And two, it seems like this is the kind of person where you could do it and induce that shove, which is obviously exactly what I'm looking for. I can get it in with a decent equity edge, and I'm very, very cool with that. So a lot of this is going to be based on how you think he's limp re-raising. If you think that he has a lot of those big pairs, obviously that's not as good because now all of a sudden there's more combos of those super nutted hands. Whereas like I said earlier, there's 18 starting combos of queens plus exactly. And if you think he's going to raise at least some of them from the small blind, then maybe those combos get halved. And then as long as you think he's limp re-raising with other hands, you notice that that part of his range starts to make up a lesser and lesser density of it all. So because of that, again, I'd probably just 4-bet here solely for value, looking to induce the ship and looking to call it when he does. But once hero calls, he ends up seeing this board and faces a c-bet of 1.7. So at this point, hero decides to call, and it pretty much looks like a call and reevaluate type line, maybe a call down mindset line. My big thing is, given the fact that the pot is growing very, very quickly, before you call here, have the definitive plan. Because there's essentially going to be two types of turn cards. There's going to be turn cards that are overs, 9 or higher, and there's going to be turn cards that are essentially bricks that are going to be 6 or lower, or board pairs. So essentially have your plan now. Ultimately, as long as you have that plan and you know exactly what you're going to do on both, and hopefully it's kind of gets sticky, because otherwise why would we have put ourselves into this situation? I can totally be on board with it. So here does decide to call, ends up snaking like the best turn card in the world, faces a bet, Hero decides to jam, and no questions at this point obviously, gets called, and Hero ends up winning, again 6-5, and that's all well and good, and it's not the major inflection point. The major inflection point is pre-flop, how to react when we face that limp re-raise. As played post-flop, obviously this is one of the more favorable runouts, but you really need to have that power plan early. Again, calling the limp re-raise with a major set mind mentality I think is going to be a bad idea. You definitely want to have a better plan than just set mining, especially as that SPR is shrinking down into the 3, 4, 5 range. So Dean, thanks for the great hand, and if you or anyone else has a poker-related hand or question, feel free to leave it on our Google Plus page. Leave a link for that in the description box, and also please make sure to like and subscribe if you're enjoying these types of videos. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. Otherwise, good luck out there, and happy grinding.